All right, we're going to cover some user management related topics. So we've already added a couple of users to our systems, and the way we did that was we did user add to add the user, and we very simply did user add and then put the username. You do not need to actually add these users, but you can certainly follow along if you want. So if we do user add and put the username, that creates the user. So if we use the ID command to look at the user information, we can see that this user was created. A group was created with the same name as this username, and that's the only group this user is in. So once this user is created, we can now use the user mod command to make changes. And the change we made earlier was to put the user in the wheel group. So the syntax we used for that was we said user mod -a -g wheel and then username. So that's going to add that user to the wheel group. So, sorry. So we can see that that user is now in the wheel group. So if we wanted to delete a user, we can use the user delete command to delete the user. However, user delete. However, when we delete the user with the user delete command, it does not delete that user's home directory. So if you wanted to delete the user's home directory, you need to specify an extra switch. So -r would have deleted that user's home directory and all the files and clean things up. So in this case, if we want to get rid of that user's home directory as well, we can get rid of it that way. So those are the three commands you can use for user management on CentOS Linux. We talked about groups. In this case, we just created a user and let it create the default group name and then specify the secondary group, an additional group later. You can also do some group additions while you add the user. So group membership can be a bit tricky to understand if you're just trying to look at things on the command line. So we have primary groups and secondary groups. And if you look in the etc password file, this first field is the username. The second field is where the password used to be back in the olden days. Third field is the user ID, and the fourth field is the group ID of the user's primary group. So if I want to look at that group information, the group information is stored in etc group. And if I go find group 1000, I see the group 1000 is the RBE0000 group. So I said a moment ago the primary group information is stored in etc password, and the secondary group information will be stored in etc group. So if we look at the ID RBE000, we see my primary group is GID 1000, which we saw in etc password. Primary group's 1000. And then my secondary group is the wheel group. And we see here the secondary group is the wheel group. So if you want to add a new group, I'll add a new group. Use group add. Trying to figure out what to call my group. We'll call it web users. I don't know. I just want to make sure I don't cause any conflicts with anything else. So I just added a group called web users. So if I look at the etc group file, I now have a group down here called web users. If I wanted to make the web users group the primary group for my user, if I want to make the primary group, it's G, initial login group. So if I want to edit my user, I can do -G web users RBE0000. And now if I look at my ID, now my primary group is the web users group. So that's how you can modify the primary group membership for a user. I'm going to go back and switch that back to my real group because that was just an example. When I added the RBE4444 user, I did user add RBE4444, and that was it. Well, you can also add any number of parameters when you add the user. So we're going to add the user, and we're going to give it a comment when we add it, and we're also going to tell it to use a different group as its primary group. So to tell it a different group as its primary group, it's the same command user mod use the -g. The group name must exist, so you need to create the group first. So we're going to add a user add -g web users. I said I was going to put a comment. It said -c was for comment. If you have a space in your comment, you put that inside quotes. New web user 1, and then I'm just going to call it web user 1 for the name of the user. So if I add that, now I have a new user called web user 1. And if we look, the web user 1 was created. The primary group is web users. The secondary groups is web users. So in this case, it does not seem that it created a new group for the web user 1 user. So we can verify that in Etsy group, and we go to the bottom, and there was no group created. So if you don't specify a group, it creates a group matching the username. If you specify a group, it does not create a new group for that user. So if you want to create a bunch of users that are have the same group membership, you create the group first, and then you add the user, and specify the group when you add the user with a -g to specify the user. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this user also, and I'm going to look at the command page. So I want to remove the file, so I'm going to do a -r this time. User del -r web user 1. So that should also have deleted the web user's home directory. So that was a better way to clean up the system. So to summarize, default primary group membership is stored in the Etsy password file. Secondary group membership is stored in the Etsy group file. If you add a user without specifying a group, one is created that matches the username. You can specify the group when you add the user to add it to a group that already exists as a primary group. We can modify users with the user mod command. We can delete users with the user del command. And we must specify a special switch -r to delete the user's home directory. If we do not do that, the user's home directory will not be deleted.